Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajak Acharya Ashtotara Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
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 Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai.
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 Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai.
Jai.
Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai.
Jai.
Navadvip Mayapur Shantipur Dhama Ki Jai.
Jai.
Ganga Mai Ki Jai.
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 Yamuna Mai Ki Jai.
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 Tulsi Devi Ki Jai.
Jai.
Bhakti Devi Ki Jai.
Jai.
Shamaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Gaur Prem Anande.
Hari Hari Bo.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
All glory to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Hare.
Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirbhishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namaste Narasimhaya Namaste Narasimhaya Prahlada Lada Dayine Prahlada Lada
Dayini.
Hiranya Kashipur Bhakshaha Hiranya Kashipur Bhakshaha Chilatankana Kalaye Chilatanka Nakalaye Ito Nrisingha Purato Nrisingho Ito Nrisingha Purato Nrisingho Jato Jato Jamitato Nrisingha Yato Yato Yamitato Nrisingha Bahir Nrisingho Hridaye Nrisingho Bahir Nrisingho Hridaye Nrisingho Nrisinghamading Sharanam Prapadye Nrisinghamading Sharanam Prapadye Tava Tava Kara Kamala Bodhe Nakam Adbhuta Shringam Dolita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Tava Kara Kamala Bare Nakam Adbhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringam Keshava Drita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare. Nrsimha Bhagavan ki jai, Srila Advaitacharya Prabhu ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hare Krishna. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Hare Krishna. Is there an introduction or anything?
Hare Krishna. Welcome to all the devotees to the celebration of the appearance day of Sri Advaitacharya. We're very blessed to have with us the darshan of the Panchatattva, one of the few locations in the world that have Panchatattva deities that contain the great personality, Sri Advaita Acharya. So typically this evening is our Srila Prabhupada Leela night, but on this occasion, we're going to speak on the appearance of Sri Advaitacharya and Vishnu Prabhu, who usually leads us in our Thursday night Sangha, and who will be speaking to us tonight. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhus, devotees, thank you very much. So we'll chant an invocation. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jai Jai
Jaya Jaya
Shri
Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya
Jaya
Advaita
Advaita Chandra
Chandra
Jaya
Jaya
Gaura
Gaur
Bhakta
Bhakta
Vrinda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jai
Jaya
Jai
Jaya
Shri
Shri
Chaitanya
Chaitanya
Jaya
Jaya Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita
Jaya
Chandra
Advaita
Jaya
Chandra Jaya
Gaur
Gaura
Bhakta
Bhakta
Vrinda.
Vrinda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jai
Jaya
Jai Shri
Shri
Chaitanya
Chaitanya
Jaya
Jaya
Nityananda.
Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya
Jaya
Advaita
Advaita
Chandra
Chandra Jaya
Jaya
Gaura
Gaur
Bhakta
Bhakta
Vrinda.
Vrinda.
We're speaking this evening on the glories of Srila Advaitacharya. And I know that this morning you there was a talk on Lord Advaitacharya as well. So some of you may have been there. And what did you cover? Do you remember anyone?
About his humility and his praying to Krishna for appearing.
Ah, yes, very good, very good, very good.
We learn that he is the personification of Mahavishnu.
Yes. So Lord Mahavishnu, Krishna's first expansion is, do you know what Krishna's first expansion is?
Balaram?
Yeah, very good. Lord Balaram, his first expansion. So practically no difference between Krishna and Balaram, although the color is different, but the dress is slightly different, but practically no difference. Then Lord Balaram expands into the first Chaturvyuha. Chaturvyuha means four forms. Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, these four. Then the Sankarshan in that assembly expands as Narayan in the spiritual Vaikuntha world. And that Narayan again expands as a second Chaturvyuha, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. And then that Sankarshan in the second Chaturvyuha expands as, any guesses?
The Vishnu.
Mahavishnu. Very good. That's Mother Sudevi. Right. Yes. Mahavishnu. And sometimes he lies down in a corner of the creation and on the Karana ocean. And from his breathing and from the pores of his body, universes are emanating. So that's the beginning of the creation of the material world. So it's interesting. And then the Chaitanya Charitamrita, usually when we think about a great person, we kind of like to see how they're compared to us. We have a certain birth date, a certain death date. We were born in a certain place and all that stuff. It's interesting that Krishnadas Kaviraj in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he doesn't start out that way. He starts out from the completely transcendental platform, describing Advaitacharya as being the form of Mahavishnu, completely transcendental. But just like in Krishna's appearance, all of Krishna's respectful and respectable family members and superiors appeared before him on the Earth planet. Like, who's that? Nobody knows?
What was it?
The superiors of Krishna appeared before him.
Mother Yashoda?
Yes.
Jata's family.
Nanda
Mother
Maharaj?
Yashoda, Ugrasen, Nanda Maharaj, Devaki, Vasudev, Acarya, etc. All their seniors. Yeah. Similarly, at the appearance time of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, prior to his advent, all of his superiors appeared before him, prior to him. Who are that? Well, there was Madhavendra Puri. Some of you have read some of the activities of Madhavendra Puri. So he appeared, who was the spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya's spiritual master, Ishwar Puri. So he was the great or grand spiritual master of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but also Madhavendra Puri was the guru of
Advaitacharya?
Yeah, very good. He was the guru of Advaitacharya. So he appeared, so Madhavendra Puri appeared before Lord Chaitanya, Jagannath Mishra, Mother Sachi Devi, Nityananda, Advaitacharya, all his Ishwara Puri, all appeared prior to his appearance. And so this morning you heard about Advaitacharya's devotion in calling Lord Krishna as Lord Chaitanya to the earth to rectify, because people in general, and this was 500 years ago, what to speak of today, we're becoming too much engrossed in material pursuits. They were worshiping too many demigods, and they were forgetting their purpose of life was to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They were pursuing material goals as opposed to spiritual goals. So, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam Yome Bhaktya Priyachtiti Taraham Bhakti Upahritam Ashnami Priyatatmana. He says that you offer me with love and devotion a leaf, fruit, flower, or water, and I will accept. And that specific leaf that he's talking about, of course, any leaf, but specifically that leaf could be a cabbage leaf or a spinach leaf but the best leaf is tulsi. Tulsi. So Advaitacharya was seeing in the Shastras, there's a particular verse that says, when you offer in love tulsi and Ganges water, then Krishna will be purchased by you. And he can't repay that debt if you offer it in love. So such a small thing. And so we all have the opportunity to offer those small items, tulsi leaf, water. But the trick, the special ingredient that's especially important in our offering is called bhakti, love. And that's a little harder for us because we get distracted too many. So at that time, Advaitacharya was offering. And there are different reasons for Lord Chaitanya's appearance. You probably know this. Do you know this? Yeah. So Lord Chaitanya's, sometimes they're broken down in different ways. Sometimes they're broken down into internal and external reasons. Internal reasons means for his own purposes. He wanted to appreciate the emotions of and the devotion of Radharani, and the qualities of Krishna, of himself, that evokes that wonderful bhakti in Radharani, and the pleasure Srimati Radharani feels when Krishna reciprocates her devotion. So these were, sometimes people give the example, well, or ask the question, they ask, is God, well, if God can do anything, can he make a rock that's so heavy he can't lift it? Have you heard that question before? Have you heard that question? No? People think, oh, now I've got you. I got you. This is a tricky question. God can do anything, right? So
Yes.
can he make it? Yes. So the answer is, yes, he can. But in the next moment, he can lift it. In the next moment, he can lift it, even though at that time he couldn't lift it. So similarly, Lord Chaitanya wanted to, he could not understand. He had difficulty understanding the special position of Srimati Radharani, even though Srimati Radharani is his expansion, is pleasure potency, Hladini Shakti. So he took the color and mood of Radharani, even though he was Krishna himself, to better understand, so he could understand, and that way he lifted the rock. Okay, so that's the internal reason, but the external reason is to, number one, to spread the holy name of Krishna as the Yuga Dharma, and to give Krishna prema to everyone. When Krishna came to the earth the first time, back in Dvapara Yuga, he wanted to spread Krishna consciousness, but mostly his business was killing demons. Even if you look at Krishna's horoscope, you find main business, Vinashaya Taduskritam. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he came, he wanted to distribute himself, distribute love of God, Krishna consciousness through the chanting of the holy names to everybody. So Krishnadas Kaviraj in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there are certain verses in the beginning that are invocations to Lord Chaitanya's appearance. And one of them is specifically signifies Advaitacharya. It goes like this: Anarpita charim chirat karunayavatirna kalo samarpayitam manutojvarasam swabhakti shriyam. He says, Lord Chaitanya has come to give what no one has ever given before. Wow. Anarpita, never given before. Karunayavatirna, in Kali Yuga, he's the specifically the Karuna avatar, the mercy avatar. Anutojvalarasam, that special, wonderful, topmost taste Swabhakti Shriyam, that wonderful taste of pure devotional service to himself. So that was Advaitacharya's mission, was to bring Lord Chaitanya to come to spread love of God in that way, and therefore he prayed fervently for Lord Chaitanya's appearance. Now, when Lord Chaitanya appeared, we're getting back now to the more earthly set. Advaitacharya Prabhu was about 50 years old at the appearance of Lord Chaitanya. 50 years old. 50. And even though he appeared in Bangladesh, near Sylhet, which is now Bangladesh, he moved and he domiciled, and he had two places of living. You know, he had two houses. You know the two houses where his houses were?
Shantipur
Yeah, one was in Shantipur.
and Puri.
No, Shantipur and Navadvip. He had a house in Navadvip. Both two houses. He would travel to Puri when there was the Rath Yatra. But Shantipur is by road about 12 miles, between 12 miles from Mayapur to Shantipur. If you're going on the road from Mayapur to Calcutta, it's on the way, Shantipur. So that was his one house. And then also in Navadvip, he had another house. So a couple of things we'll talk about, some of the activities of Advaitacharya, which you might be familiar with already, but I don't think you covered this morning. There was a Lord Chaitanya, when he first exhibited himself in Navadvip as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was at Srivasanga, which is, just down the road, maybe a kilometer from the Mayapur Chandadoy Mandir, ISKCON's temple in Mayapur. So he exhibited himself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he called all the devotees there. And he, what was he doing? He was distributing love of God to anybody who would come. This is described in brief in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but it's also described more elaborately in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. So Lord Chaitanya came, we know that he came to distribute Krishna Prema. Namo Mahavadinyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate. So devotees were bringing their relatives, their friends, and everyone to the place to get the benediction of Lord Chaitanya of love of God. So then someone said, bring Mother Sachi. You know this? Bring Mother Sachi. So Lord Chaitanya then, he went from a joyful mood to very grave mood. He said, no, do not bring her. Do not bring my mother. Why do you think that is?
Because you offended Advaitacharya Prabhu.
She said, I cannot give love of God because she is offended a Vaishnava. He didn't say Advaitacharya right then, but he said she is offended a Vaishnava. Now, how is it, Mother Sachi? So Advaitacharya, he kind of understood this, and he thought, no, she is my worshipable person. There's no way that she's offended me. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't relent. The story is, what happened is, Jagannath Mishra and Mother Sachi had two sons. The oldest son was named Visharup, older, senior to Lord Chaitanya. He appeared before Lord Chaitanya. So Vishvarup used to go over to Advaitacharya's house, not the house in Shantipur, because that would have been too long for him to go, but the house in Navadvip. And at Advaitacharya's house, he would be hearing the they would be having discussions on Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna consciousness. So Vishwarup was hearing these discussions, spiritual topics, and he was becoming more and more attracted to Krishna and detached from material interests. So then, you know what? He found out that his parents were arranging for his what do parents do?
To get you married.
That's right, to get you married. So he figured that out, and he said, "Oh, I don't want to become entangled." So he went out. He took sannyas. He left. He went to South India. So that broke Mother Sachi's heart. So then later, when Lord Chaitanya grew up some, at the time he said, "No, I will never do that." But he grew up some, and he also started to attend lectures and discussions and sadhu sangha at the house of Advaitacharya in Navadvip. So Mother Sachi, seeing that, she thought, "Oh, this is you're going to make my other son a sannyasi too. You're supposed to be called Advaita, but you don't bring people together. You separate them." She says she didn't say it really out loud. She had it in her mind, but Lord Chaitanya could understand. And so when this happened, he refused to give love of God, Krishna Prema, to his own mother. Very, very instructive. So the offending of the Vaishnav, we call that, what do you call that? The mad elephant offense. And in the, the 10 offenses for chanting the holy names, number 1 is called blaspheming the devotees who've dedicated their lives to propagating the holy names of the Lord. It's also called sadhu ninda. So I was thinking at one point that, that just means, those devotees who are actually, really advanced and are propagating the holy name of the Lord. And then I heard a lecture I heard a lecture Srila Prabhupada was talking, and someone asked a question. They said, "Does that mean only the advanced devotees or the great devotees we should not?" And Prabhupada said, No. Any. Oh, okay. So this was a very, very instructive pastime of Lord Chaitanya involving Advaitacharya. So, I mean, you could think about it. We say that Krishna is God, and Krishna, the name Krishna has a particular meaning. What is the meaning of Krishna?
All attractive.
All attractive. All attractive. Do we really believe that?
Yes.
If God is all attractive, then you're going to blame Advaitacharya? There's a verse in Rupa Goswami's literature. He wrote, it says, it's 2 gopis are discussing between themselves, and one gopi says to the other gopi, "My dear gopi, if you would all want to enjoy material society, friendship, and love, then don't go down to the Jamuna Keshi Ghat and see that beautiful boy Govinda in his threefold bending form playing a flute, because they'll never be able to enjoy material friendship and love." This is the actual situation. God is all attractive, and the purpose of life is to have attraction for Krishna. Srila Prabhupada had that verse written on the bottom of a Brijbasi's print that was put in the San Francisco temple early on, and Mother Jamuna wrote it down, that verse in calligraphy language. So why blame Advaitacharya? Because Krishna, being all attractive, he attracts everyone, Vishwarup and everybody. Sometimes people say, "Oh, Krishna is breaking up, Krishna is taking away, the family members." Well, actually, all family members are most primarily attached to Krishna. Everyone is the son or daughter or family member of Krishna. Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita. Sarva yonishu konteya aham bija pradapita. I am the seed-giving father of everyone. So having a relationship with your father and is very important. So anyway, finally what happened was when Advaitacharya was thinking about Mother Sachi and how that she's really the most worshipable person, and how is this that he's Lord Chaitanya is saying that she offended him. He, thinking of Mother Sachi, he fainted in kind of unconscious ecstasy. So the devotees, being kind to Mother Sachi, said, now Lord Advaitacharya will never allow you to touch his feet while he's conscious. So now take the opportunity, touch his feet, and that way you can get supposed forgiveness for your offense. So she did that, and then Lord Chaitanya gave Krishna prema to his mother. At least that's the pastime that goes on. Advaitacharya, he would go along with Shivananda Sen and all the other devotees from Navadvip in that area, Bengal, to Rath Yatra every time Lord Chaitanya was there. So they'd travel by foot. And he would also bring his secretary along. Advaitacharya's secretary, you know the name of Advaitacharya's secretary? No? His name was Kamalakanta Vishvas. Kamalakanta Vishvas. So they go along with the other devotees to Jagannath Puri. And who was the king in Puri?
Prataprudra.
Yes, Prataparudra was there. So one time, while they were going to Jagannath Puri, Kamalakanta Vishvas sent a letter to Prataparudra Maharaj. And in the letter, he wrote that, Advaitacharya is really the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I don't know, you know that verse? You've probably heard it. Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Svarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. This is about the Panchatattva. Panchatattva Atmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa. Krishna, Bhakta Rupa is Lord Krishna in the form of a devotee is Lord Chaitanya. Svarupakam, Lord Nityananda. Bhaktavataram, that's Lord Advaitacharya. Bhaktakyam Gadadhar. Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. Bhakta Shaktikam Srivas, Narad Muni. So anyway, Kamalakanta Vishvas in his letter to Prataparudra Maharaj says, well, he established that Advaitacharya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But then he said, well, but the thing is, he's got this debt of 300 rupees. He's got a debt of 300 rupees. So you please pay the debt or liquidate the debt, please. So somehow, I don't know how, but Lord Chaitanya got a hold of that letter to Prataparudra Maharaj. Yeah. So he said, well, the first part is very good, but the second part doesn't make any sense. It's nonsense. How can the Supreme Personality of Godhead be a debtor? He said, this Kamalakanta Vishvas must be a bowl. You know what a bowl is? There are 13. Go ahead.
And
Yes. Well, bowl specifically. There's 13 Appa Sampradayas or Sampradayas that oppose themselves, or sects that pose themselves as Vaishnavas, but their teachings are deviant because they've gone off in certain directions away from the pure teachings of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So Lord Chaitanya said, oh, this Kamalakanta Vishvas must be a bowl because he's thinking that God is a debtor. And Srila Prabhupada comments in the purport that, well, sometimes you'll find, like, for example, when Vamanadev went to see Bali Maharaj, what did he do?
Begging.
He was begging, right? He begging 3 steps of land. But that was only a device to give mercy to Bali. And then when he actually got the donation, he expanded himself and showed his position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But that's not what Kamalakanta Vishwas was doing. He had some kind of conception that God is like Daridra Narayan. Have you heard this before? Daridra Narayan, that God has become poor. You know, people say things like Manava Seva is Madhava Seva. Have you heard that before? This is the conception of Daridra. So really, we're to serve God, you have to serve mammon or man. So they serve the poor person Narayan, but they kill the goat Narayan or the cow Narayan. This is not good philosophy. So Krishna, Narayan, is always the husband of the goddess of fortune. He's not Daridra. He never becomes Daridra. So anyway, Lord Chaitanya criticized Kamalakanta Vishwasa's understanding. He pointed out the misunderstanding, and he said, "Do not let this person come in my presence again. This is offensive. This understanding." So Advaitacharya was there hearing this response from Lord Chaitanya. So you know what Advaitacharya Prabhu said? He said, "Oh, you're being much more kind and merciful to Kamalakanta Vishwas than to me, because you're always giving respect to me, and I wanted you to treat me as your servant." So Advaitacharya had the plan that he would begin preaching at his house impersonal philosophy from the Yoga Vishishtas. So he began preaching impersonal philosophy, and Lord Chaitanya heard about it. And Lord Chaitanya, of course, we know he's against that impersonal philosophy. So he came there, and what did he do? He beat Advaitacharya. So Advaitacharya said, "You're being more merciful to come. You only beat me, but you didn't forbid me to come into your presence. So you're much more merciful to Kamalakanta Vishwas than to me." So Lord Chaitanya, he was hearing this. He called Kamalakanta Vishwas back to his presence, and he said, "Okay," and he explained to him the mistake he had made, and he gave him his mercy. And then Advaitacharya said, "Now you're being doubly merciful to him and not to me." So Lord Chaitanya said, "Okay, well, what benediction or mercy can I give to you? What benediction do you want?" So what did Advaitacharya said? Advaitacharya, good, what?
Said, "Let me be your servant."
Yeah, he was, yeah. He said, "You've already given me so many benedictions by letting me be in your presence, but you give me this, you'll please me very much if you'll do this one thing. If you will distribute love of God to all the low-born, unqualified persons so that they will become happy in Krishna consciousness. To the Westerners," he didn't say Westerners, but there's Mlechas, Javanas, all those, men, women, Muslims, etc. This was, he said, "In that way, you'll make me happy." So Lord Chaitanya, he agreed to that. This is quite interesting thing. And so we know that actually happened. So when Advaitacharya's father died, when the father dies, usually the son, they perform a ceremony called Shrad. Shrad. So Advaitacharya performed the Shraddha. He brought many people were there for it's a funeral ceremony. In the funeral ceremony, they did, it's quite involved, the Shraddha. And then after the ceremony, there's a plate of maha that's offered to the most respectable Brahmin present in the assembly. Something like during the Rajasuya sacrifice, the first worship or Agra Puja was given to the most respectable person, and it was there was some discussion, and it turned out to be Krishna. But Shishupal didn't like that. So anyway, among all these Brahmins were there from the area of Navadvip, which is a highly elevated, so many learned, qualified Brahmins were there. So Advaitacharya, he took that Shraddha Patra and he delivered it to
Haridas Thakur.
Haridas Thakur, a person born in a Muslim family. A person born in a Muslim family. And some people objected. But Advaitacharya said, by giving this play to Haridas Thakur, this is better than giving to 10 million Brahmins, because he is a elevated Vaishnava, even though born in a low family. But because he's a pure Vaishnava, always chanting the holy names, therefore he's better than 10 million Brahmins. Very interesting. And he quoted, Aho bata svapachoto gariyan. You know this verse? Yach jiva gre vartate namatubhyam. So that says, that verse in Srimad Bhagavatam by Lord Kapila says that, isn't it wonderful that even someone born in a family of dog eaters, if they always keep the holy name of Krishna on their tongue, jivagre, at the tip of their tongue, then it's understood that they've completed all sacrifices and austerities, and they're the topmost Brahmin, the best Brahmin, just because they're always chanting the holy name of Krishna. So Advaitacharya cited that, and people could understand this was true of Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur and Advaitacharya. Let's see. I'm thinking, is there other things? So, do you have any questions about Advaitacharya or any comments so far? No?
Prabhu,
Yeah.
would you mind telling us a little bit about the pastime involving Advaitacharya and Nityananda dancing together?
Oh, you mean when they were having prasadam?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, this was in Shantipur, and Advaitacharya and Lord Nityananda had a mock fight. Actually, Lord Chaitanya was invited also by Advaitacharya after he took sannyas, and he said, just, I'm going to come to my house as a sannyasi. I'll give you just a palmful of rice for your bhikka, because the sannyasi is not supposed to take a lot. So Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda had tricked Lord Chaitanya to come to the house of Advaitacharya on his way, thinking that was on his way to Vrindavan. But anyway, Lord Nityananda sat down and was taking prasadam with Lord Chaitanya, and Advaitacharya was serving him. But Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda Prabhu, no matter how much he gave, he wasn't how much Advaitacharya gave, he wasn't satisfied. See, on one hand, Lord Chaitanya said, "You're giving me too much. No, you said only a palmful of rice, but now you're giving me more and more and more. How can I be a sannyasi?" On the other hand, Lord Nityananda said, you invited me to your house to eat, but you don't give me half a meal. So anyway, they were having some argument back and forth. Nityananda was taking the position of it as an Avaduta, and Advaitacharya was taking the position of a Smarta Brahmin. You know, we talked, yeah, I think it was yesterday, that there's kind of two approaches to doing Vedic rituals. One is the Pancharatriki or Goshami Vidhi, and the other is the Smarta Vidhi. So Nityananda was chastising or teasing Advaitacharya for following the Smarta Vidhi rules and regulations without understanding or without focusing on the purpose of the rules and regulations, which is to please Krishna. So in the midst of their fight, Lord Nityananda took a grain of rice and threw it at Advaita. And when Advaita was hit by the grain of rice, he began to dance in ecstasy, because by being touched just by the mercy, the prasad of an avaduta, of a real devotee, he was freed from his smarta conceptions and was lifted to a higher platform of appreciation of love of God. So anyway, that was a mock fight. It wasn't a real fight for the edification of the devotees.
Thank you, Prabhu.
When Lord Chaitanya would go to Puri for the Rath Yatra, Advaitacharya would also go, you know, and even though he was an older gentleman, by the time he was, Lord Chaitanya took sannyas at 24, so that means Advaitacharya was 74 when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, and then after that is when they went to Puri every year. So he was dancing vigorously in his 80s and 90s, which is quite interesting. Like Srila Prabhupada used to dance also through Rath Yatra. And you know, when Advaitacharya would dance in the Rath Yatra, he would say a mantra in front of the cart of Lord Jagannath. You know what that mantra was? Chaitanyara Das Muni, Chaitanyara Das. Chaitanyara Das Muni, Tanra Dasera Das. He would dance and say, I am a servant of Lord Chaitanya, a servant of Lord Chaitanya. I am a servant of Lord Chaitanya and a servant of his servants. That was his happiness in dancing, along with the kirtan. So this is reflecting the verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita that goes, Ekala Ishwar Krishna Arshabritya. There's one supreme controller, that's Krishna. Everyone else, even, you know, expansions, Balaram, Mahavishnu, Advaitacharya, Nityananda, all others are servants. And Advaitacharya was recognizing and exemplifying that as being the servant of Lord Chaitanya and exulting in that position. So we can also learn that because that's the source of happiness on the transcendental platform. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasovarjam rasopyasya param dvishtva nivartate. One's attachment for sense enjoyment, for material pleasures, will be replaced by the more we get a taste for service to Krishna. So it's very wonderful that we're able to talk and hear about Lord Chaitanya, about Advaitacharya regularly by the administration of the Philadelphia Temple and others, arranging these programs to hear and chant about Krishna, because that's going to awaken our attraction for service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we're very fortunate with that. So it's said that Advaitacharya, it's not in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but it's the other places says that Advaitacharya stayed on the earth for 125 years. Quite a long time, quite a long time. So he was about 50 when he Lord Chaitanya appeared, and he had two wives. One wife was named Sita. So in that song that Srila Prabhupada, that bhajan he was singing, Doya Koro Sita Pati, that's Advaitacharya. His one wife was Sita, the other wife was Shri. Doya Koro Sita Pati Advaita Goshai, or Advaita Acharya. Tava Kripa Bole Pai Chaitanya Nitai. Because by your mercy, we can get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Nityananda. So this is the prayer of Narottam Das Thakur. So Advaitacharya appeared first. He was instrumental. Oh, I forgot to say. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita also it says that the prime reason for Lord Chaitanya's appearance was the call of Advaitacharya. So we have much to be thankful for Advaitacharya for doing that, calling Lord Chaitanya to begin this Hare Krishna movement. And then he participated in the Hare Krishna movement, spreading Krishna consciousness by chanting of the holy names of God. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Vishnu Gada Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Dronacharya, Prabhu.
Very relishable. Thank you so much for describing the pastimes and the great personality of Advaitacharya. Did he ever exhibit himself as Mahavishnu in the same way that Lord? No, okay.
Not that I'm aware of. Yeah, he always positioned himself as a servant, like I said, a servant of Lord Chaitanya. That was his thing. So he didn't like it when Lord Chaitanya acted as, give him respect. It's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita that, Lord Chaitanya is the trunk of the tree of devotional service. The first branch is Lord Nityananda, and the second branch is Advaitacharya. Advaitacharya had 6 sons. The number 1 son was named Achyutananda. Achyutananda was just a young baby when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, 2 years old. But later, when at about that time, after Lord Chaitanya took sannyas and Achyutananda was like a 3-year-old boy, Advaitacharya commented at home. He said, Lord Chaitanya's spiritual master was Keshava Bharati. Keshava Bharati was the sannyasi who initiated Lord Chaitanya into the sannyas order. So when Achyutananda heard that, he said, "What are you saying? This is nonsense. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the spiritual master of the whole universe. Nobody can be his spiritual master." So Advaitacharya, hearing that, he was very pleased, and he could understand this Achyutananda was a very advanced soul, even at 3 years old. Yeah. So he had 3 sons. There was Achyutananda, Krishna Mishra was another son, and Gopal. Those 3. They became Vaishnavas, and they followed Advaitacharya. And then he had 3 sons who became Mayavadis. That's very interesting. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport describes how in the line of Krishna consciousness, sometimes there's deviations, and one should be very careful to follow the order of the previous Acharya, the previous spiritual master, in this case referring to Advaitacharya, but he also referred to, in his own case, the order of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to spread Krishna consciousness out of India to the Western world. And so, which by Krishna's grace, Lord Chaitanya, Srila Prabhupada, following Lord Chaitanya's order, was able to do in the order of his guru.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, do you happen to know who the spiritual master of Advaitacharya?
Yeah, Madhavendra Puri.
Oh, it was okay.
Yeah, Madhavendra Puri is his guru. If you see in the in the disciplic succession in the Bhagavad Gita, you'll find there's Madhavendra Puri. Then they have a bunch of them: Ishwara Puri, Nityananda, and Madhavendra and Advaitacharya. Sometimes in parentheses are there. Sometimes they say that Nityananda Prabhu's guru was Lakshmipati Tirtha, but sometimes, but they had association both. Madhavendra Puri.
Thank you.
Some say that Haridas Thakur was a disciple of Advaitacharya. Others say Madhavendra Puri also. But Haridas Thakur used to stay at the house of Advaitacharya quite a bit. They would associate quite a bit, Advaitacharya and Haridas Thakur. And you know that Haridas Thakur also used to associate with Lord Nityananda because they would go preaching together in Navadvip, and there were some nifty activities that took place there, dealing with Jagai Madai.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Do you know the story of Srila Prabhupada going to Shantipur and praying there?
Oh, yeah.
Before he came to America?
Well, it goes like, the way I remember it was that in his household life, Srila Prabhupada used to often go to Shantipur, especially when he was in Calcutta, and chant, for a long time at the temple. There's a temple of Advaitacharya, sitting there in the back, and sometimes he would. They said the pujari there, who was staying there for quite a long time, would see Srila Prabhupada there. He didn't know who he was at the time. He was just a person, Babu, in the back, and he would be chanting, and sometimes there would be some tears coming. And then after several years, he again saw him, but this time he was in saffron cloth, and he was chanting again, and he said, "I've come to get the blessings of the Panchatattva and Advaitacharya because my guru has given me a practically impossible task. So I need the mercy of the Panchatattva and Advaitacharya, and so I've come." So he remembered that pujari. So he didn't know who this person was. So later, when somehow he come in contact with devotees later, he saw that person who came and was chanting and was begging for the mercy of Advaitacharya and Shantipur, and chanting so much. That was His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, which he didn't know at the time.
It's a little bit more that I remember, if I can say.
Sure, please.
So then he did not, and I said, if I remember, Prabhupada even asked the pujari, so please bless me, I'm leaving for the West. And then after that was gone, he was left. And then after a long time, then he started seeing some Westerners coming to the temple, and he was kind of surprised. And then somebody gave him a Back to Godhead magazine.
Oh, yeah.
And then maybe you can tell the rest.
No, you go ahead.
No, please. You
No, you come on. Please. Mother Sudevi, please.
Okay, so then he saw, oh no, this is the same Baba who was coming here. So then he took the BTG and he went to the Mayapur temple, and then he told the whole story. I said, maybe he will be interested to know that. And then he said, like the one you already said. So that was nice that to remember that Srila Prabhupada went there to pray for mercy of Advaitacharya.
Thank you very much. And at Shantipur, which was one of Advaitacharya's houses, at the time when Advaitacharya was there, he would always have a big celebration at the time of Madhavendra Puri's appearance day. You know this? So then over time it became, the people in the area, they continued for a while, but then it kind of petered out. So then at a certain point, some of the representatives came to ISKCON and they asked, can you help us reinvigorate this celebration at Shantipur for the appearance of Madhavendra Puri? So the devotees agreed in ISKCON, and so now they distribute prasadam to everybody in the area every year on that time. In the for recognizing Advaitacharya and Madhavendra Puri, his guru. Thank you. Thank you. Anything else?
Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, you said he lived till 125 years. So how many millions of people he moved towards Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? He traveled all over, right? He traveled to Navadvipa and also Puri. Did he travel anywhere else to spread this movement?
He went to Vrindavan. He did the Vrindavan area, but other than that, I don't know. I don't know. Mostly, it was there in Bengal. Along, of course, Bengal at that time was West Bengal and East Bengal. It was big. So traveling in Bengal, but besides that, I don't know. Anybody know?
And also, I wanted to clarify something. He is the expansion of Mahavishnu, and also somewhere I heard he's also the incarnation of Lord Shiva.
Well, it's a little tricky. I mean, Mahavishnu has his glance. So Mahavishnu glances at material nature. So that glance is none different from Mahavishnu. And that glance is also sometimes called Sadashiv. So that's the not the Shiv within the material. There's a Lord Shiva who's within the material universe, but not that Shiva, but the Sadashiva, the glance of Mahavishnu. So he's sometimes identified as that. But that's Sadashiva beyond the material universe. That's sometimes said.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for the clarification.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Hello.
Vishnu.
So
Prabhu.
much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Sri Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Vishnu Gadar Prabhu. Such a nice class.
Hey, Hare Krishna, Hare Yashra Prabhu. Haribol. Thanks for that arti. It was kind of, even though we couldn't see you, we saw the articles, and it was fun to see Lord Chaitanya and his associates, including Advaitacharya. Is there a name for your temple?
Bhakti Garden.
Okay, nothing like new Shantipur or something.
No.
Okay, Bhakti Garden sounds good. Okay, Hare Krishna. Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
very much.
Hare Krishna,
Jai
Prabhu. Thank you.
Advaitacharya ki jai, Srila
Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Okay.
Hare
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.